guess we're live. Is that right?
We are live.
We are
Lauren,
live.
thumbs up. You want us to introduce the show? Is that right?
Welcome to Hospitality Digital Marketing Live Show with Lauren Gray, featuring Lauren Gray, the Marcel Marceau of Hospitality Digital Marketing. Lauren is, I believe, judging from the artwork behind him, I believe is in a Tim Hortons Donuts somewhere in Nova Scotia.
Nova Scotia.
Yeah. And it looks like he's had a phone call also, so he seems to be multitasking. Your guess is as good as ours because we have no idea what
so
Lauren...
we're supposed to have a guest today, right? From AAHOA. I
From
think
AAHOA.
We're meant to have a co-host.
Yeah,
We're supposed to have a co-host, yes.
I'm not sure, Lauren. Maybe that's what he's on the phone with now, trying to set up technical details.
We could just have a really awesome game of charades, and we try to guess what Lauren wants us to say right now.
Exactly. Except I think his screen is frozen. So there we go. Oh no. He's chewing on. He's chewing on
the wire. This is going to go down as one of the classic episodes of this show ever. By the way, right here.
That's right. This is probably where we'll win an Emmy for sure.
Yes, whatever that
real abstract, avant-garde.
Yeah.
Talking head video podcast.
Well,
yes.
yeah, what we were saying was actually we were speaking earlier, or actually we should all introduce ourselves. I'm Robert Cole with Rock Cheetah, Robert K. Cole on social media. I'm joined. We'll let everyone introduce themselves.
Sure.
After you, Tim.
Next to Tim.
Age before beauty. Go for it.
We set that up well for Stuart.
Wow. Okay. Well, my name is Tim Peter. I am at TC Peter on Twitter and usually Tim Peter everywhere else at timpeter.com, consultant in the hospitality space. And Stuart, since we're going for beauty and not age or wisdom.
Yeah, touche. Stuart Butler from Fuel Travel. We do all things hotel marketing, and we host the Fuel Hotel Marketing podcast. And shameless plug. Go ahead.
All I was going to say was my favorite hospitality marketing podcast, actually. The Fuel Marketing Podcast is a spectacular podcast, and well worth adding to your favorite podcatcher.
And
we appreciate that.
And
not the
reason Tim is saying that. The reason Tim is saying that is because he doesn't consider his show, Tim Peter Thinks, which is also an outstanding, more short-form podcast, to really be pure hospitality. So he feels he's in a slightly different category, but reigning over the business category, I believe.
There was no implied, self-promotion in that one. I legitimately think the Fuel Hotel Marketing Podcast is the best podcast focused on hospitality marketing. Truly,
thank you.
Really
Tim.
great podcast.
Likewise, I do enjoy yours as well. It's I feel like I'm inside your head when I listen to yours because it gets real deep and cerebral.
I hear all those.
The reason I laughed when you said that is I really would wish that on my worst enemy is deep inside my head.
Tim says it's nothing like that. You don't hear all the different voices.
Right, exactly. You don't hear the internal conflict of,
No, that was a stupid thing to say. Take that back. Don't do that.
I did want to ask you a question, Tim. So in your show, when you say looking at the time on the wall, do you actually look at the time on the wall every time you say that?
It's really funny. This is a funny behind the scenes. Right there is a clock on my wall. And I look at it every time, and it's sort of an unconscious habit at this point. And here's the really funny part about it. The funny part about it is it is a battery-powered clock, and the batteries died about a year ago, and I keep forgetting to change them because I've got a clock here on my computer, I got a clock there, I got this on my... So it always says the same time. It is always 14 minutes to 7. I'm unclear if it's AM or PM, but yes, I do say looking at the clock. So
wow.
I love it.
There's the podcast microphone right there. And
nice.
Looking at the clock on the wall, we are out of time for this week. Yada yada yada. So that's funny. That's funny catch.
That's good that you don't happen to just glance up like a minute or two in and go, "Oh, we're done. That went really fast." Who knew?
Yeah. I do try to keep it. Funny. It's funny because I do have a timer running when I do it because I try to keep it within a certain minute.
Yes, and you're very, very good about that.
Equally
as good about that as bad at as we are here. But
Fuel is bad at that. Yeah.
Well,
yeah, I started out as a
for
30-minute show, and it's now hour plus every show. I feel like
I try to shoot for something you can do when you're on the treadmill or on your commute to your car. So in between 12 and 16 minutes is the goal.
So Tim's involved.
You can do
more
that if
with
you listen to us on
exercise.
4 speed. Yeah, we're marathon runner trainers, endurance runners. Listen to our show. That's exactly right.
So you want to plug your book.
So the next episode, we talked about this at High Tech. We released this thing at High Tech, which was the technology study that we did, where we asked vendors and hoteliers about how they choose technology.
Oh, sure.
And so then we went back to some of the vendors afterwards, after we got all the data, and said, what do you think about it? So we got feedback from folks like Navis and Revenate and SHR and Ideas and a bunch of vendors. So we put that content, their feedback, into the booklet too. So now it's actually available for download. So you can go right now to fueltravel.com/tech study and download a copy of that. But it's really interesting, some of the insights. So the next episode of the Fuel Podcast is going to be just sharing some of those insights. But I'll give you a little pop quiz, boys and girls. So what do you think folks said was the biggest technology challenge facing the hotel industry? And both hoteliers and vendors agreed on this point.
The biggest challenge, I would say, staff.
Yeah.
Oh, is it purely technology or just overall? I would say many would say. Okay, so staff to manage that technology or to develop it wouldn't be one of them.
Okay, that was in the list for sure. It wasn't number one.
Oh, it was. Oh, it wasn't. Oh, that's always
It was not number one.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll put you out of your misery, unless Tim, you want to have a stab.
Connectivity.
Integration. Yeah, integration was the number one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So both agreed strongly that integration was the biggest challenge. But we also asked questions like, what they look for when they're choosing a technology, and it was really good to see that people were considering the guest. Like, guest experience was one of the number one drivers across the board, which was great on both sides. Interestingly, we asked people about their satisfaction with their current technology providers, and PMS was the one that people were least satisfied with across the board. I think 50-something percent, 56% of hoteliers were not satisfied with their current PMS. So a lot of cool data like that.
Almost not at all.
Right.
Yeah. And a high percentage of people aren't using some kind of CRS as well, which was kind of interesting. But
did you say R or
really cool data?
You say
not, like a high percentage, like 40% are not using some kind of CRS. And then we also asked them towards the end about what they thought was going to disrupt the industry in the next 12 to 24 months. And coming in dead last on that list was blockchain. We gave them a list to pick from, and they said blockchain was the least likely that it was going to disrupt or that they were going to invest in. Number one on both sides again was guest experience. They want to invest in guest experience. So
that makes sense.
So yeah, there's lots of cool little tidbits like that, and some commentary from other vendors. So check that out, fueltravel.com/tech study, and we put it together with our friends at FlipTudes and stay in touch as well.
Fantastic.
Do I have audio?
We have audio from Lauren.
Note to self: never plug in your phone prior to you doing a mic test, because then it thinks the phone should be the mic test.
We saw you chewing on a cable there, so we thought you may be exhibiting some level of frustration. So
I'm going to learn international sign language so that from now on we can do the show for a wider audience and just go completely that side. Katya is having a bit of a technology issue. It turns out her corporate laptop doesn't want her to play with her camera. So she is changing laptops to be able to use the camera on another laptop and join the show. But thank you, gentlemen, for starting the show and for, as always, making it much more intelligent than I actually tried to get it started. So
are you at a Tim Horton? Are you located at Tim Horton in Nova Scotia? Is that the?
Yeah, live from Nova Scotia. Actually, I chose a Starbucks because I went to a Tim Horton and there was a bit of a slower speed to it. And I went over and did a speed test at Starbucks, and I got a little extra couple of megs out of it. So I was like, I'll go to Starbucks. And I think Katya has found her laptop.
Ah, very good.
Fantastic.
And we lost him. So Starbucks couldn't be that good because we just lost.
Nope.
I don't know. You seeing a black screen now for him?
No,
No, he's back.
I'm seeing Lauren. He just freezes.
I'm seeing Lauren frozen. Oh, no, now he's moving a little bit.
We have a little bit of a max headroom thing happening with. Oh, if you'd frozen right there, that would have been awesome, by the way.
That's right.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Hey,
Oh, wait. Turn your cup around, get the Starbucks logo, so then you can do like a sponsorship thing. So there, there we go.
Where's Howard Schultz?
So Tim,
throwing some coin our way
Tim,
so we can get better bandwidth.
did you get my joke last week about you're killing me, Smalls? You knew it was meant in jest. It was meant to be fun. I was dying for you to get on the call with Max. We had a great conversation with Max last week. So thank you again, Stuart and Robert, for that. I got a lot of feedback from people on the show that said that they thoroughly enjoyed Max's contribution to it, which I don't know is a compliment to us or not.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Finally.
Like, that was the best show ever.
Yeah.
Katya
we had Katya.
Well, we had her photo, and now we have a black square. I don't know if she can hear us or has audio. Hard to say.
Kat, look into the light. Look at the light. She gives the instructions about the microphone and the camera on the top, so we should be good for her joining us from that when she finds out. But gentlemen, if we want to go ahead and continue, that would be awesome. And then once Kat begins to join us, we'll be able to give her a proper introduction and let her spend some time talking with us out of it.
And we were having a discussion before you came on, Stuart and I, about we should have really done this as a Katya's here. We don't have to talk about a Comic-Con Breaking Bad panel. That's good. So as we stall for time.
Hello, Katya.
Katya, you there? At least she freezes well. I mean, she looks great for being frozen.
Right, exactly. When I freeze, I look like Uncle Fester.
Way better than Tim, yeah.
I should just put a light bulb in my mouth when I freeze.
I'm having way too much of a visual happiness about that thought too.
Exactly. Yeah,
that's right.
I keep getting soda cans. The Coke is doing the personalized soda cans again this summer, as they do. And for some reason, I keep getting ones that say Gomez, which I think is funny.
Really?
Because I like to think of myself as Fester's slightly thinner, slightly more attractive brother. So there you go. So I am Gomez henceforth.
Wow, that's how you think of yourself.
Oh well, yeah, a lot of
high standards.
Yeah. Well, and that must make Stuart Pugsley. Holly's Wednesday, and I'm Lurch. Oh, I'd love to be Lurch.
Come on, I'm bigger.
I think, I feel like Lauren needs to be Lurch. He's got the height.
Lauren needs to be. Oh, that's true. Okay, I'll be Thing.
I was going to say you be Thing or Cousin It. You have a lot more hair than many of us.
That's true. Yeah, I could grow this out. I could do the Cousin It thing. That's for sure.
All right, so I have a question for Stuart while we're waiting for Katya.
Katya now is actually trying to avoid the show. How do I turn this off?
She heard the first 5 minutes. It's like, nope.
In your report, in the book that you put out, I mean, you mentioned a couple of interesting takeaways. Was there anything that's particularly surprised you or particularly, was like an aha for you that you thought was really interesting?
I feel like the vendors and the hoteliers were more on the same page overall than I thought they would be. I thought there was going to be a big disconnect. I think the only place we really saw a little bit of a disconnect was hoteliers put a little more emphasis at times on price, whereas vendors put a little more emphasis on innovation.
Yeah.
But I was really overall pleasantly surprised to see how the focus was really on how do we make this work better for the guest across the board. I didn't expect to see that. I was hoping I would see that, but I thought the hotel side especially would be a lot more focused on how do I cut cost, how do I make this easier for myself, the kind of internal looking drivers. And whereas across the board everyone was saying let's make the technology work together so that we can better serve the guest. So I think that for me was the biggest takeaway, and a very pleasant surprise as well.
That's awesome.
That is a pleasant surprise because I think since 2008, 2009, there's been so much focus on cost cutting and efficiency, eliminating positions, deferral of capital expenditures, all that sort of thing. That now it's there are these gaps, as you said. More than half the people don't like their PMS. So now what are they going to do? And it's interesting. I'm just starting off a project which is involved with that with a group that's going to open in 2020. So it's a ways off, and they're trying to figure out their tech stack, which is a really, really good, because they want something that's established and reliable and isn't just as it's untested,
and
but it
has
looks
the
really
features.
cool. They want the features, they want it to be reliable, and then all of a sudden you start going into, well, that's an older legacy technology maybe, and not. So it's going to be an interesting project. So
we're in that kind of shift. You know what's interesting though is I feel like the legacy PMSs have woken up to that fact that they have some work to do to improve their technology from just the architecture of it a little bit.
Absolutely.
You see a lot of these guys that were on flat databases moving, SQLizing and things like that, and being way more open to integration than they've ever been. So I feel like they've realized that if they don't evolve at some point, these new guys that are cutting edge are going to have the feature set and have the reputation and be able to support some of these bigger properties. But right now, if you're a large property, full service property, you really don't have a choice but to go with these legacy guys. So it's good to see see some of them moving forward. On that question specifically, I just pulled it up. We asked, what are the top 5 factors when choosing a PMS? And this is a little interesting because the top 4 answers were the same, in top 2 being identical for both sides. So ease of use was number 1. Integration was number 2, both vendors and hoteliers. Now, this is where it's interesting. This is where it was a little atypical. The hoteliers value the level of support above the price, whereas the vendors thought the price was going to be a bigger driver than the level of support.
Oh man,
so
the support.
That was one with support is critical on a PMS because it's the center of your business.
And you think about the amount of turnover and things along those lines on property, especially right now where hiring is such a challenge for so many properties. The ability to have somebody you can turn to who can go help. It's a big deal.
Well, because if everything's working, they don't even think about the PMS vendor, right?
Right.
It's just
that's right.
It's like it's a utility, right? But when it's not working, there's a lot of folks. People when they flip on the light aren't really thinking about electricity much when the light goes on. When it doesn't, maybe gets a little attention. So.
Well, I was pleased to see earlier this year. It might have been just before High Tech, and we may have had this in one of the shows. But there was an interview in Hotel News Now or Skift, I can't remember where, with a product manager for micros. And it was interesting in terms of them basically making a big push in terms of at least trying to change the perception of micros, right? Because they've sort of been on the back burner for a while, right? Ever since the Oracle acquisition, you haven't heard a lot from micros. They haven't done a lot of product releases, things along those lines. And what I thought was particularly interesting in the article, and if I can find it, we'll put it in the show notes, was the fact that, the person they were talking to was very upfront about their reputation and, said, we know we have work to do there, and this is why we're dedicated. And said all the things you would expect them to say, which is different from what you used to hear Oracle say or Micro say, right? It used to be, no, we have the industry leading, and right? It's not us, it's you. And now this time it was like, no, it's us, and we need to work on that, and this is what we intend to do. Right. So I thought that was
and they have to because they certainly have the resources as an overall organization. To be able to address the issue, fix it, that sort of thing. But it's really the hospitality group getting the resources, getting the attention, getting the strategic, kind of muscle behind them to go do that, because they've got to go spend some money. And I think Oracle, classic large company issue, they'd look at it and go, yeah, but we've got better ROI over here in this other industry. So that's a hard one. Let's defer that, and hey, we're doing this for the shareholders. Here's the better return. Let's go. And so many things happen in this industry. Look at Google. Google focus on flights and not hotels. And now they're turning a little bit more attention to hotels, but certainly not at the same level at all that flights got, right? So.
Right. No, for sure.
And gentlemen, just so you know, I asked Kat to go over rebooting, step out and step back in. That's why you see her popping in and out. I'm trying to see what's going on with yours.
All right.
But I will say this, that Oracle seems to be, or Opera seems to be changing its philosophy related to integration. And we talked to them at High Tech this year. And having talked to the other PMS companies, that a lot of them said, we're getting so many people from Opera coming to us saying they want to jump ship. And part of the reason is everyone wants best-in-breed products across the board, right? Whether it's your CRM, your data layer, whether it's your booking engine, whatever it is. And when you're dealing with someone so closed as Opera is, or who makes it so difficult for new companies to integrate with them, Opera's realized, I think, that they're going to have to make a change there. So they're reevaluating the entire model of how you get integration into Opera, and they're a lot more open than they were. And we're seeing new companies for the first time just reaching out to Opera and getting approved straight away for integration, which has never happened before.
Right.
And they're waiving some of the fees. They're not charging the $20,000 they used to charge, which is great.
Right. Yeah.
Katya, can you hear us, or can we hear you? Hold on. We just want to see if Katya's joined us yet. Kat, can you hear us? And can you hear you, or can you say something? I gotta say though, with her, she's moving a little bit. There's movement, but there's no audio. We're halfway there. She's being a trooper. She's like, I'm going to make it. I'm going to be there.
That's right. Perseverance. That's the first attribute we look for in our guests.
It could be a bandwidth thing. I'm wondering if she turned off the video camera and just did audio.
I'm going to actually take my camera off, because in my Constant Dialogue webinar jam, there is a shared bandwidth once it begins to broadcast. So maybe I'm going to pop my camera off real quick just to see if it can.
And Lauren, you're also
getting those people that tune into the show just for your looks, Lauren.
I know, right?
The eye candy is gone. They'll just have to rely on Tim. Tim's here, though. Thank God.
Yeah, that's right. Uncle Fess. Yeah.
I really should never have said that out loud, should I have?
No.
It's not going to go away anytime soon.
That ain't going away anytime soon.
No. And you know what we're going to be expecting come Halloween, right? You know that this is going to have to go that way.
Well, that's right.
We're going to have to have a whole...
I will absolutely dress up as Morticia.
Oh, good. Well,
that's... okay.
He's in touch. Do you have your microphone working, or... I think Katya's still working on it. I'm going to start texting her, see what's going on.
Okay. We're going to...
and I'm going to mute myself as well. Go ahead. Now, I'm going to let you guys run.
Robert, you want to pick the first news story of the day?
Hey, well, the one, and let me see if I can get this posted into the show notes. The one that I put as the top story was an interesting one for a couple of reasons, and it was that Expedia. Well, actually, I'm going to step back a little bit. FocusWire, T-News, Skift, all these, all the main groups produced articles saying that package bookings drive higher ADR and have longer booking windows, right? This was a breaking news item based on an Expedia report, which one would think was
the clickbait headline.
That was the clickbait headline. The interesting thing was, though, that report was produced over a year ago and published by Expedia over a year ago. So this was a content marketing play by Expedia to kind of, have this information bubble up, and it was certainly picked up, which is very interesting. So one is Expedia's, out there, doing some content marketing in the packages area. And Max actually sent me a little note and commented. I had actually an extensive response to Max had a post on Max Starkov had a post on LinkedIn that said this was completely bogus, and I had a big long response to it, which then had a glitch on my phone and I lost it. Damn it! LinkedIn, you need to have a cache for that sort of stuff. But anyway, I thought we should go through the report a little bit and say, what's going on. Basically, Expedia came out and said, hey, packages are great. They drive higher ADRs than regular bookings, which is really a kind of counterintuitive conclusion. So,
Robert, let me just grab a second. I want to see if we can hear Katya for a moment. She says her microphone's on, so let's see if Katya can join us. I don't know. We'll see. Katya, go ahead. Nope, still no mic. All right, sorry to keep interrupting.
No, that's okay.
Oh, that's okay.
So, Stuart, you were shaking your head aggressively while Robert was reading the headline. Why do you disagree?
Yeah. Well, so I have some issues with this. One, I think the timing is kind of interesting, considering, like you said, how old the data is, and I think it's Expedia's way. They keep doing this. There's a cycle of Expedia trying to say, hey, we're not really your enemy because we're really good for you, and here's why. Right. But it's always a little bit disingenuous, right? They've done it several times with Rev Plus and other things, but with this one, I failed to see the causation here. I think it's a correlation. I feel like Expedia's coming out and saying, hey, we're really good for you because if you book through us and we're bundling in an airline or something like that, you're going to get a bigger ADR, which, if you look at the types of people that are flying to destinations, they're tending to stay longer. They're tending to stay in peak times. It makes sense. So even though you might be discounting your rate to be involved in the packaging, I think it's kind of a no-brainer that the ADR and the length of stay are going to be longer for those packages. I don't think it means you have to be in the package space. I don't think it means you have to dump more inventory into Expedia, which is kind of the argument they're making. I just think it's one of those self-prophesizing kind of things that Expedia does from time to time. They always put out this data that just supports which I guess they're a business, they're allowed to do it. Sure. But I don't like the way the media jumps on in support of Expedia when they're doing something that's so transparent to me, and self-serving as well.
Well,
so
but they advertise in these publications, and it's similar to Expedia for Google. They get their attention. They're buying a huge amount of it. They are certainly a major player in the industry, and But what
we're not seeing is the level of thought that Max put into his rebuttal for it. Right? I would love to see journalists do their job and actually look at this kind of information critically and look at both sides rather than just regurgitate propaganda from someone that isn't necessarily doing it for the right reasons. That's
and a lot of these are churn we need 500 words on this or whatever it is, and we're going to pull the key points out of the press release and repackage it and go, and it's done, and let's get on to the next thing. Right? There isn't a lot of investigative.
There isn't a lot of this industry.
Well, and the overall
why we see so much nonsense about blockchain and crap like that, because they don't put as much thought into as they should. They're more about volume and clickbait, and they're chasing metrics, vanity metrics, and it's all of this article, versus trying to help the industry and doing what a journalist should do.
But that's the whole publishing industry, right? And it's the media industry, as opposed to there's a missing component of investigative journalism, right? Where they really go in and say, hey, look at what we found. We dug to go do this. And
critical
major paper, the New York Times, the Washington Post, all these groups, you used to have that in a lot of local papers, which they're just gone, right? They're part of services. They're now part of, USA Today produces most of their content, and then they do a little bit of stuff on local fires and, and missing pets.
But Robert, first of all, I agree with you. I agree with everything you said. Stuart, I also agree with everything you said, right? Both of those things can be true simultaneously. Mm-hmm. I think it's also true, and Robert, you can feel free to either abstain or come at me, bro. Your choice.
I'll come at you. Whatever.
For Focuswire, right, which is part of Focusrite,
right?
They don't have that problem, right? Focusrite certainly doesn't have a financial issue that's driving this kind of stuff, or clickbait or things along those lines, and they're built on doing really good analysis of what's happening in the industry and the like.
Right.
So Focusrite in particular should be one who's able to pull this apart and say, wait a second, is this true or is this BS, right? So that's something where I think there's a disservice happening there that, to Stuart's point, I don't entirely trust this data, and not just because of the source, though that certainly plays a role.
Right.
Right. And certainly FocusWire should be an organization that can come back and say, you know what, hold on a second, right? And I don't think we saw that in this specific case.
Oh, no. And in this case, in fairness, Kevin's great. Kevin's probably out of the whole group is the best of the bunch. He has some great reporters now on his staff, but they aren't necessarily fully integrated in real time with the analyst group, right? So it's not like, hey, here's a story we're doing. So the analysts are off working on stuff they're working on, right? I mean, they're either doing some research tranches or specific things here or there, writing a paper. So there isn't that back and forth. That's certainly what they want to do, is to draw more on that. So when they're doing things around conferences, like when he was doing his live shows at that, it was great. It was current. They were getting some terrific things, but that hasn't quite happened. They haven't figured that out yet. Yeah. Well, what I wanted to cover on this is the package market is a great market. I mean, depending on the hotels, you can do a lot of different things with it. It's certainly isn't like the don't do it, but there are so many interesting things with the stats. Okay, so first, the higher ADR from the package, it also skews a lot of these packages are driven to more 3 and 4 star, more upscale hotels. Sure. So when you're looking at it, this is not a per store basis comparison. This is just for the overall market. Packages tend to be 20% higher ADR than the average hotel. And it's like, well, yeah, because people aren't hitting a lot of roadside Super 8s and and Lakitas and things like that in this package. They could, but a lot of them are going, because it's air combined with it, into a major market where they're going to stay. That's the general design of it. Certainly some of the things of driving more revenue in terms of longer ADR, as Stuart said, the longer booking window. Absolutely. This is leisure versus corporate, right? That's kind of a big duh, right? So again, fewer cancellations. Well, yes, there are fewer cancellations because the air is non-refundable. In many cases, you can't change it. So, and again, they have, in some of the reports, if you go and pull out the full report, some of it is hotel car. You can maybe play around with some of the things like that, but the main things are really what I thought was the most disingenuous of this is, why is Expedia doing this? Well, Expedia has a new kind of product, which is rather a little bit quiet. They're being quiet about, which is basically breaking down a package into, you buy your air and now you can go buy hotel. Right. So it's not simultaneous.
That's the timing. That's why they're bubbling this up now. It's because they're trying to promote their new.
Right. It's sequential packaging. So I think I've mentioned this a couple times on the show. There are 5 types of packaging, right? One is a hotel specific bundle, right? It's, we're adding a value add like a breakfast or golf or something like that, right? You've got just kind of the value add. The second one is what I call a bundle, which is just, it's 2 modes of transport, or a mode of transportation.
Right, it's multimodal,
something like that, where that's just bundled. You aren't doing anything that's really interesting. You're just swapping out components. The third one is true dynamic packaging. And again, since I was at Neat Group and we got the patent on it, I can describe what that is really when you're taking the integrated components and you have rules driving you have supplier rules. They're saying, here's who I can be bundled with. You've got distributor rules saying, here's who I want in the bundles. You've got packaging rules, and you have dynamic pricing and combinations. You don't know what you're going to get. Nobody is really doing that anymore. That's a dead product. The technology is now controlled by Expedia, but the functionality of that is not really being provided because it's much more lucrative to do these other forms. The next form, the 4th stage, is sequential packaging of, I've bought this, now I will do that. When I was with Budget Rent-A-Car, we did a deal with Priceline, which was, the code name was, do you want fries with that? Because they booked the air. And it was like, yeah, I'd like a car. And we had 40% conversion off of that because we were offering the same rates we had to give to Priceline anyway, right?
We did the same at Leading and Wyndham with rental car, and it was a nice, it was an upsell, right? And it's exactly what it was. Do you want fries with that? Hey, you've already got your room. Do you need ground transportation?
Right.
And we already have your credit card. We'll just pass that along and we'll take a little cut of it. It was very
And
profitable.
it's a highly, and it's a high intent of purchase.
Absolutely.
You know the dates, all the information is there. Yeah.
By the way,
the people
stupid little aside, it worked great on the hotel side to add rental car and never air, right? It worked great if you did air to add hotel or rental car, but it very much was how people think about it. Anyway.
Oh, no, absolutely. And the reason for that is simply because people have no idea because of dynamic pricing in the airline industry, what is the airfare?
Right. That's right.
It could be, you put a gun to their head, you go, hey, you've got to hit it within $50. Everyone's dead.
Well,
because
but the other flip side,
it could be $1,000.
the other flip side to that is that you book your air first, right? A lot of times you don't you don't think of the hotel before the air. You know what hotel you're going to do, then you book the air, then you book the hotel.
You can't, because if you don't have flights coming in, you go, oh my God. Right. If I leave, especially in leisure, if I leave the day later or the day before, I save $800 for the family. Wow.
Right. Right. I mean, the point being, by the time they booked the hotel, they had the air. Like we never could tell anybody air after the hotel's purchase because they have to.
Right. They have to lock it. They have to lock it down. Right. And then the fifth one is distributed packaging, and I can't tell you what that is because nobody's doing it, but that will be the future. So you can hire Rock Cheeto. We'll go build that. We'll help you build it. But anyway, what Expedia is doing now is if they can get more package inventory, they can now make huge margins on it because there's no constraint over what they're selling the package at, right? The demise of this is the other shoe dropping on the demise of rate parity, folks. Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So they come in and all of a sudden they've got something at a 25% discount. And they go, hey, you want fries with that as a standalone hotel with the product, no opacity in terms of the product name. You come out and go, oh, we don't have to give them 25% off. All we have to do is give them 5% off. Right. And the rest, I think, gets, allocated to what? Gratuity? I'm not sure. Whatever the account is over there on the intermediary we'll just keep the change because it's an unnecessarily low discount. And again, at Neat Group, we'd run into this all the time, but we had on the true dynamic packaging, platform, we had a rule set up saying you could not revenue manage that. If a hotel lowered its price, that price, that discount translated to consumer value, not to intermediary margin, right? That was the whole, the key to the Neat Group model, which made it very successful. When we were acquired by Sendent, that was the first rule they changed. And Expedia is not going to change that rule back.
No, of course not. Well, I mean, I will tell you in my experience at Luxor is, we used to build packages to promote, right?
Absolutely.
But those packages to promote were designed to do one thing and one thing only, which was to drive phone calls to our travel agents who would then build you the package you wanted. Because people would call and say, oh, I love this package, except instead of this flight, I want this flight. Instead of this hotel, I want this hotel. We were working off consolidator fares and merchant model rates and made serious coin on that because now this was all luxury, obviously, and it was all customized to the needs of the traveler, right?
Sure.
But it was very much, I definitely want to go to Venice. I just want this hotel instead of that hotel, or I want this airfare instead of that airfare. And it was fantastic from a revenue perspective, which is why Expedia is doing this. Because there's tremendous profitability to be had there, especially on merchant model and things like that.
Well, and that's why the entire tour operator industry works.
Say that again, Stuart?
Yeah. I think this is really all smart move from Expedia, and I really don't have a problem with what they're doing. I don't have a problem with the data they put out. I don't have a problem with their spin on the data. I think that the move into packaging is the right move for them at this time with the ecosystem the way it is and the way the industry is going, and it's going to help them from a profitability and a shareholder value perspective. I think my whole problem with this still comes back to how it's getting reported in the industry, because I think there's misinformation going back to the hoteliers. And if we as hoteliers go into this with our eyes open, knowing that they're going to erode parity, that they're going to take advantage of the rates, and they're going to encourage more people to do it. If you go into that knowing the reality that you're facing and you make money from it, that's great. That's win-win. But I think this is going to mislead a certain percentage of the industry into thinking that Expedia's doing more for them than they really are at the end of the day.
Well,
because the pitch is the points
that I always come back to again and again and again. I am not, there is a whole faction, there's a whole segment of our industry where it's, Expedia says something, an OTA says something, Booking.com says something. Grab the torches and pitchforks and let's go storm the castle.
It's nonsense.
Right. And I'm not part of that group. I don't think that makes a lot of sense.
Agreed, 100%.
I also think
they're a very valuable piece of the ecosystem.
Right. I also think it makes sense that you need to approach them like a male Black Widow spider approaches a female Black Widow spider. Right? There's potential benefits to you in this transaction. Yeah. And also, you could get your head bitten off. So, as long as you go at it in that regard, then look at it in real terms to say, how do I benefit? How do I profit? Not just in the short term, but in the long term. Then I think you're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the conclusions of the report, though, were skewed. I mean, and the pitch of the report.
Really?
Saying
Say it isn't.
No. But I thought Stuart made the point that the content was okay in this particular case.
Well, but it's allowed. They're putting out a report to promote their business. They're allowed to be skewed.
This is knowingly manipulated and misleading, right? This one.
Wait, Expedia did what?
Yeah, this is
again.
This is Expedia being
them publishing
evil,
it. I don't have a problem with that. I don't know about you. They're being a little disingenuous, but again,
they're
self-serving. They're a business. Of course.
They are being disingenuous because for the same hotel, it's a lower ADR. Now, there are some tremendous things you can do in terms of providing upgrades, right? Provide it to your executive rooms or something like that. That's great. An ocean view room for the same price as a garden view room, things like that. You can do some great stuff in packaging, and it has the added benefit of shielding your retail pricing structure, right? So this is a very, very valuable tool for the hoteliers to use smartly, but to go out there and think, I'm going to go dump more inventory into the package, the package sector, and I'm going to drive a higher ADR. That's not going to happen because the packages are going to have a deeper discount. They're going to be, 20, 25% off, and you're going to be pressured to have deeper discounts on your packages than your standalone hotel rooms. The other thing is they also had in terms of booking window that the packages hold up better. Another completely disingenuous stat, because the package inventory gets closed out when the hotels start running more full, right? So it's not that it's not eroding, it's not available. Sort of thing. Yeah. And so, I take exception with that. And that's where there should have been, a rebuttal. And again, it's tricky for some of these publications to have, strictly, rebutting the things on the fly when these things come out. But, there should have been some blowback on this year-old study, that had some
at least commentary. At least some commentary. And I think they're all too interested in breaking the news, right? Which is ironic when it's a 12-month-old piece of data. But they want to get out first. They don't necessarily want to be best because, it's this clickbait world we live in. The shock headlines are going to be what people click on, not necessarily read or digest. I'd much rather see quality.
But I want to spin that. I want to spin this in a different way. Stuart, I agree with you completely. Right. But I think this is a thing where smart hoteliers can really do themselves a big favor. If we know that's true, and if we know that your competition is always going to be, who was it that said the thing that, when you invent the ship, you invent the shipwreck, right? And I know I use that quote a lot, but it's really important because this is a thing that happens a lot with digital is everybody moves fast. And, move fast and break things, right? Was the old Facebook motto. And if your competition as a hotelier is following that, I read this thing and oh my God, let me run around with a chicken, like a chicken with its head cut off. Maybe the right thing to do is not try to be so fast in those areas and instead be thoughtful. When you read these things, how does this align with your strategy? How does this align with where you're trying to go to? And don't get caught up in all the drama and all the bullshit and all that kind of stuff, but instead say, wait a second, let me give this, I don't know, a moment's thought, right? And say, how does this apply to me and how can I make this beneficial and who is the source and all that other kind of thing, right? Instead of just
and I agree with you, right? If you're wearing your consultant hat and you're talking to one individual property or group of properties and saying, this is how you get a competitive advantage, 100% agree. But if we step back and say, let's look at this from an industry perspective, there's easily as many people on the flip side of that that aren't being thoughtful and are jumping into the things two-footed without thinking about it. That's my bigger concern is as an industry, we're already struggling, right? We already, from a technology perspective, are way behind, say, online retail. And stuff like this does not help us as an industry. I agree with you competitively. If you're a savvy marketer, you should be licking your lips and rubbing your hands together and saying there's a lot more schmoes are going to get taken in by this. But as an industry, we need to fight for each other, I think. And that's where I feel like the T-Newses of the world and the Skiffs of the world have a responsibility to the industry to try to help us versus worrying about how many people viewed their particular article on Facebook or LinkedIn.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
very fair.
Yeah. And those, those headlines are intended to, to be clickbait and to stick around. And when somebody's out looking at package, booking ADR or something from an SEO perspective a year from now, when this data is 2 years old, right? They'll come across this, and the source data is skewed, right? With a, and again, they do, I think all of them have been very good that this isn't the gospel. It's from Expedia sort of thing. All of them had, Skift has its little Skift take, and then, there were other little comments and things like that, but not kind of the deep, not the deep analysis.
I mean, you just
spent, on a show like this.
It doesn't need to be that deep. You just, you just spent 5 minutes pointing out 6 or 7 critical flaws in the data, right? Not one of these articles did that. So it doesn't take a whole lot of effort. It just takes a little bit of critical thinking.
Yeah, no, the data's accurate. It's just, the statistician got their hands on it. Yeah, the interpretation is for a point of view to support it, and it's not really necessarily a reflection of what a reasonable person might see.
Objective reality.
An objective, informed person might.
Well, I mean, right?
Yeah.
I think those were the words I'm doing between those lines, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
All right.
So, we need to check in with Katja, who just her photo has improved the show tremendously. I just want
absolutely.
Ratings have gone up.
Ratings have gone up purely on that. So I think she's diligently trying to get, which is great. So hopefully we'll get the technical issues taken care of. There are a whole bunch of, I don't know if you guys have. Ellis Conley had a little thing on packages. I think we've talked about packages. They were talking about all-inclusives a little bit. And actually, you know what? I'll just post the article. We don't really have to talk about it. But
that was kind of interesting. I mean, I like the thought process in that article about how people just strive for 100% occupancy, and it's not always the best. When you start cutting rates and things like that. So I don't know if it warrants a lot of discussion here, but it's a good thought exercise to go through in every aspect of your business. Just don't go blindly for a metric just because 100% sounds great. Sometimes it ends up costing you more money, or you don't make as much profit.
So in my experience, and I'm not alone in this, Robert, I know you've had the similar experience. I know if Lauren were here, he'd have the same similar experience. In my experience, we almost never shoot for 100% occupancy. We always try to
because you won't hit.
We always try to over-index on rate, and if we index 95 on occupancy, that's a great place to be frequently in terms of profitability, right? It just tends to work out better for long-term profitability. So,
well, absolutely, because you're going to wind up with things with, to run 100%. Truly 100%. You're going to have situations of no-shows and cancellations and all of that. And if you're running 100%, you're walking people. You're going to have some problems on your net promoter scores and your satisfaction rate.
And we have some clients that struggle with that.
Every dollar extra you get in occupancy really is 60 cents or 55 cents or something like that. Every dollar in rate is $1. Right. So right there, you're making a 30%, 40% premium on every dollar that comes in that way. We just find that to be true again and again and again.
Well, and what was interesting, I think Alice. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say the other thing to consider too is when you're running 100% occupied, even if you hit that magic number, you're not overbooking and then accounting for cancellations and things. If you just hit 100%, that puts a strain on your operations as well, and the efficiency at which you serve your customers, which ultimately is going to probably have a negative impact on every guest. So if you're running at 75, 85, 95%, and you can give guests a better experience, then your rate's going to continue to go up because they're going to leave better reviews, and obviously your reputation's higher, then your ADR can go higher.
Turning the hotel over just purely operationally, right? You have checkouts. No, you can't have a late checkout. No, you can't check in early because we're trying to clean these damn rooms.
We're full,
So
we're done with you. We're ready for the next guy.
And you have to do that because again, now with a lot of loyalty programs, what are some of the benefits? Oh yeah, you get early check-in. Yeah, you can get late checkout. And boy, once you start taking those things away, that's
people get pissed, man.
They are entitled to that. They've always gotten it. You start getting I will never stay in your hotel or your brand again screamed at the top of it, which is normally not good for the people checking in. I find.
Well, and the flip side, this is a well-known thing. I can't remember who came up with this, but I mean somebody, a whole bunch of research discovered this years ago, and it proves true again and again. So right now we're talking about when things are good. The flip side is true when times are not good, right? Because what happens is to chase occupancy, first of all, you frequently have to cut your rates to do it. And we're gonna put that aside for 1 second, why that's a really stupid idea, right? But you cut your rates to do it. What happens then is you have to steal from either marketing or service to pay for that, which means the quality of
or your investors. Yeah, something's got to give.
Something's got to give, which tends to mean that your customers, your guests, get a worse experience, which means that you get worse reviews, which means that people have a lower expectation of the property, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and it becomes this vicious cycle. It is a death spiral, almost always. Now, the reason it's really, really stupid to do the cutting rates to chase occupancy in the first place is maybe once upon a time you could get away with it because maybe your competitors didn't know what you were charging. That's no longer true, right? I mean, today you cut rates and all you really do is cause everybody else in the market to cut rates simultaneously. And then not only is it a death spiral for you, but it starts to be, a race to the bottom for everybody. And as I wrote a blog post called The Race to the Bottom a long time ago about this very thing. And much like war games, the only way to win that race is not to run it in the first place, right?
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, and in a downturn, I mean, we talked about package market before. That is a good way to go.
It's a great way to go.
Because it doesn't impact your retail pricing structure as long as your partners who are selling the packages aren't cheating and selling your package rates on a standalone basis. So, because then all of a sudden
that would happen.
Oh man, that is the business model for a lot of not very scrupulous
wholesalers,
tour operators, and wholesalers.
Tour operators. Excuse me, stuck in my throat there.
Not the good one. Not the good one. A lot of the and let me tell you, I spent 3 years at Mark Travel, and we were the Boy Scouts on it, right? I mean, and because again, we were trying to help the hoteliers do smart things, and we were out there calling out, hey, here's somebody who's doing this to you. And a lot of the hotels were like, well, yeah, but they're generating business, and we really need it. And it's like
occupied, and
it's like, oh, just let them set your retail pricing structure. Why don't you just let them handle your revenue management, because you are bleeding, and it's ridiculous, right?
Which I do feel obligated. After I just went on that rant, I do feel obligated to say I certainly am sympathetic when you're a hotelier to the fact that at the end of the month you have a note to pay, right? So I mean, I'm certainly very, very sympathetic to that reality of you have to have the right net operating income, you have to have the right cash flow through, et cetera. So all of that is absolutely true. There's a good way to do it, like Robert was just talking about, packages and things like that, where there's opacity and the like, and there's the ways to do it that don't make sense. That's really the point.
Yeah. And I have some clients, we have a lot of clients in the condotel space, so they have some unique challenges because they're not beholden to the owner, the overall property. They're beholden to hundreds of individual unit owners, right? So they're having to provide a return, because competition being what it is, if they don't occupy those rooms at the right kind of rate, then someone else is going to come in off-site and say, we'll manage that unit for you, Mr. or Mrs. Homeowner. So those guys have a real challenge when it comes to occupancy, and we see them all too often, unfortunately, drop in rate because they don't really have a choice at the end of the day if they're trying to appease not just the customer but also their homeowners as well.
Right.
Well,
and there are always exceptions, right?
Yeah.
Just assume you're not it until you determine for sure you are.
And quite honestly, quite honestly, the North American major hotel groups are really bad at running all-inclusive hotels. I mean, some of the Mexican groups, the Spanish groups are outstanding at it because they run them like cruise ships. They do run them full, right? But most of that is from a product consistency level because they have an entertainment staff, right? They've got these buffets. They don't want a half-empty place because they don't want to start shutting down facilities and scrimping and having people not have fun that a full place, which is exactly how cruise ships operate too. So they do the same thing. Their revenue management winds up being lower the rate to the point that's going to fill the place, and here's how we go. So there's some operational issues, but I thought Ellis did a really good job. He had some really nice nuanced things about, hey, get people out of the property to explore the destination. It lowers your costs. They're paying for your food and things. They're paying for lunch. Get them out of there. You don't have to serve them. So,
No, definitely.
Some good stuff. So,
all right, what else we got?
That's the kind of journalism I like right there. That was good.
That was from the Rainmaker blog, right? Yeah,
right. Which is a great blog, by the way. Really, very much to your point. There are some companies, I think, we sometimes call out people negatively, but there are some companies. Rainmaker is one, Duetto is one, where the quality of Fuel is one, Flip2 is one, where the quality of the content that they create to educate the industry is just top shelf. I mean, do they have an editorial point of view because they would like people to then say, we'd love for you to use Fuel if we're the right type of service provider for you. We'd love for you to use Rainmaker for the right service provider for you. But I think they also start from a place of, we're going to educate you so that you can be the right type of customer for us, right? I mean, I really
it's about alignment and thinking, right? We've found so much that it's helped us and our clients communicate more effectively because we're priming them with the thought process that we have, and we're showing them kind of behind the scenes. When we tell you this is the strategy, they understand all the tactical stuff that's gone on behind the scenes to get to that point. So it's really, I wish I could say we do the podcast in a completely selfless way. I mean, we genuinely do want to help the industry, but at the end of the day, it does self-serve us because it makes people think the way we do, and that makes our job easier. We're not going to come out and say, buy Guest Desk Booking Engine or Guest Express mobile app because it's the best, but we're going to say, here are things you should look for, consider when looking for these tools.
That's right.
That helps us, right? So
the other thing I like about it, and I will be honest, I practice what I preach on this one too. I try to do the same thing. It's this idea, it's something we tell clients all the time, be what you are, and the customers who want that will find you, right? Be what you are, and the guests who want that will find you. And so you're just modeling the same behavior, right? If the things we're saying on the podcast, if the things we're putting in these blog posts make no sense to you, and you're like, nah, that's crap, I'm never going to do that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that's probably not a good fit.
That's great. Yeah. I'm glad we found out now, right? Money.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Now, wait. Do I need to start checking, both of your podcasts for like subliminal audio sort of cues?
Well, I have a very,
Yeah.
very high pitched sound that actually triggers people's like Alexa and things like that, and tells them, the answer to every result is Tim Peter and Associates.
That's right. I need to buy.
That's why my Alexa stopped referencing Wikipedia and it started. TimPeter.com is now the response to everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
Timopedia.
right.
So, Robert, what else do we have?
Boy, there were actually, since we were talking about productivity, there was a Hotel News Now article, which was just really about the different booms and busts in hotel profitability, which I thought it's always nice to look at a profit and loss statement every once in a while for the industry. So, whoops, hang on, I'm just posting it over here. Sorry about that. I had a little accidentally closed it while I was posting it.
I was fascinated about this one in terms of, we are in the midst of one of the longest booms in the history of the hospitality industry. And, now's a good time to start, making sure you're keeping some powder dry, right? Because nobody knows when the other shoe is going to drop, but clearly things don't go up forever. Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's this year. I don't know if it's next year. I don't know if it's 2 years out, but it's probably not, 10 years out. Right.
Right. Well, and it has a nice chart of, again, for the industry as a whole for 2017 on all the breakdowns by department, kind of what's the contribution to the overall industry. And you can go, I see. Yeah, look. Wow. Labor is a big number sort of thing, or room expenses and things like that. I mean, it doesn't really break down by rooms versus F&B, but just the overall industry. But I thought a couple interesting points were, one was the MVP was miscellaneous income. And I think that is a bit of a red flag for the industry. As you said, we're kind of plateaued out. So now all the best growth profitability isn't really stuff related to the core operation.
Right.
It's this other stuff.
Yeah. And sometimes it's a little bit kind of ambiguous, nebulous. Yeah, resort fees, things like that. What are they really getting?
Which are, that's not a good thing. The resort fees. Now the cancellation fees, that's okay. I'm all right with that. The whole prepay and save type concept, I think is, it applies to packaging.
Travel insurance kind of,
all of that.
I think those kind of add-ons. That's a value there, right? Tangible value. The guest makes a choice.
You commit. That's you do something for me, we'll do something for you. Right. Everybody understands that. That makes a lot of sense. You just said, sorry for cutting you off, Robert, but you just said exactly the right words. Everybody understands that. Mm-hmm. Right. If you had to stand up in front of your, a hotel full of guests and explain what the resort fee is and how it benefits them in any way, there's a lot of people who would not be too eager to have that conversation. As long as you're able to move, if you have a lavalier mic where you're not, or maybe a podium where you can hide behind it. Right. Yeah, exactly.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, we've done a lot of testing related to resort fee. We have a lot of resort kind of clients, and through the booking process, we've had people trying to test that. And a lot of our guys, they have some really good on-property amenities like pools and lazy rivers, and they're providing free Wi-Fi and free parking and stuff like that. Yeah, kids clubs, activities during the summer, and so there's tangible value in that, and a lot of them we're encouraging to be as transparent as possible with those. But we've done a lot of testing on, how far we can push that and what impact it has. And honestly, a lot of our folks now are doing kind of like a $10 per night per guest kind of a resort fee. It seems to be where it's kind of
Yeah.
flattened out depending on the destination and the ADR and things
New York,
like that.
it's
But we found
35.
yeah, I'm sure. And then you have to pay for parking and stuff, right? On top of that, probably.
Absolutely.
So what we found was when there's a $10 delta, when we're pushing the price up $10, there was pushback. When we were doing $5 increments, it seemed to have no significant, if any, kind of impact on conversion rate whatsoever. So there's a price sensitivity that the guest has, but I would encourage everyone to really be as transparent as possible and really sell the value of it versus just trying to cash in on something because you can't drive your ADR up too high because the select service property doesn't have a resort fee. So you want to end up competing on rate as well, which is why people are doing it.
For sure.
Yeah. So a couple of the boom areas, luxury. But again, it was interesting. The luxury, luxury reported the highest increase in room revenue, 2.9%. That's not a. I don't know if 2.9% really qualifies as a boom.
Inflation, right?
But they did. But what I found encouraging was they managed to get EBITDA up 4.1%. So that's good. They're getting it to translate to the bottom, to the bottom line.
Which tends to be true in luxury anyway, just because you got more room to play with, right? You can control costs more effectively because it's a smaller share of the overall anyway.
Yeah, and boy, do you have an opportunity to provide value. So again, my daughter's on her second week of her honeymoon out in the Greek Isles. She's staying in, some really cool, luxury places. Some of them are 5, 7, 10, 10 rooms, 28 rooms, that sort of stuff. And some are 100 rooms or 50 rooms, right? They've stayed at like four different places. All of them are providing not just a little junky continental breakfast, but they're providing a good whole breakfast. All of them have great Wi-Fi, even out in Santorini or Spetze or Crete. They've got all of that, and it's fantastic. And there aren't resort fees. It's not complicated. It's just, hey, look at this is a great place, great everything's good, right? There's nothing they're feeling that they're getting taken advantage of.
Well, again, you said the word a minute ago. It's value, right?
Well, and they're doing a value. Okay, so right now they're in Crete, and they're staying at this cool little place, Avli, which is somebody assembled a bunch of little houses, right? So started as a restaurant, they added some hotel rooms, they've now added a few more and another restaurant, but they have a cooking thing. So what did they do? They purchased that in advance because they're getting some help from, another plug for wendyperrin.com. Wendy does a great job. If you want a
Wendy Perrin is the best for this stuff.
High-end vacation. She has the best people who know. And I mean, the comments I've been getting, just text messages from my daughter going, she stayed in Santorini, right? Everybody wants to go to Santorini. Santorini in July is a crazy tourist place. And one of her comments was, boy, were these guys right not to end the trip in Santorini. It was crazy. They're ending the trip really in Crete, right? They're ending it in Crete with a day in Athens just to make sure the flight, you aren't jumping off the ferry and getting on the flight sort of thing. Really, really smart, expert travel planning. But anyway, one of the things was they're doing a cooking thing at this, this great restaurant. Well, they had an opportunity to extend that and go to the market in the morning and go shopping, right? And so it's great. They had this great time, and my daughter's posted on Instagram about, wow, this is fantastic. Look at all the stuff we're doing at the market. Here's the stuff we're doing preparing the food, and what did she post? Eating a rabbit liver at dinner, right? When they're eating, and so they're having really great memories of stuff they wouldn't do
after this. And that's what I'm having too.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, a big plug for rabbit livers. But anyway, that hotel's very, very smart, right? They got them in a room. It's not a big place. They cross-sold them into the the cooking class, which is great. And these things aren't necessarily cheap. And they got them to pay more to go to the market with them, which they've got to go buy stuff in the market anyway. So this is fantastic.
Yeah.
So
that's the best scenario, right? Where you're encouraging your guests to spend more money, but they're doing it willingly and appreciatively. They want to spend more money because they have a better time.
Right.
Everyone wins. That's what.
And it's not low. Let me tell you, you don't want to go to Crete and stay at the least expensive place. That's not good. Go to TripAdvisor, check some of the lower. Don't do that. You may
There's
be
a
safe.
minotaur in the room or something.
Yeah, I think there might be other animal life. Maybe not the mythical variety, which is maybe even worse. So, but anyway, on this.
Hey boys, I have to bail. Unfortunately, I've
right.
got to go record a podcast, and this was the only time we had available, so I've got to get set up.
Right. Well, we'll continue on and
but I've enjoyed it today.
Fuel went after you're gone, so that's fine. So
thanks. And if you will remember, go download our study, fueltravel.com/tech study. It's awesome.
But
our
autograph copy is available. Again, for a premium. You can do it the premium model.
Yeah, you want to autograph it there. Yeah, I'll get Melissa to autograph. No one wants my autograph.
That's a good idea. Okay.
All
right, guys. Thanks.
It's $5 for an autographed one, and it's $10 for one without an autograph.
Exactly.
There you go. Exactly. All right, see you guys.
Take care.
So just a couple of things on the study here, and let's see. Whoops, where is it? So I guess Tim, it's just you and me. So
yeah, and unfortunately, I've only got 15 minutes left.
Okay, well we've got tons of stuff we can talk about. Whatever you'd like. Let's finish this one off though. The bust one, our utilities are increasing. So
sure.
Okay, that's fine.
Sure.
But the big one I thought were franchise fees increased 4.3% over the last year. That's a rough one for full service hotel. The increase was 6.5%. That's a problem when, especially, you're looking even at the luxury hotels being the best performers at a 2.9% increase.
Yeah.
So, franchise fees growing at over double the rate of revenues.
Yeah, not
best situation.
Not sustainable. I think full disclosure, I know people know this, but I always feel obligated to say it. I am a shareholder in a major franchisor, and my wife works for that same major franchisor. So, so I like to acknowledge any biases I might have here. So
you're conflicted as a shareholder and a spouse of really getting your beak a little wetter.
Well, I mean, I like eating. I mean, I got kids in college, right?
So it's okay. It's great. Jack up the franchise fees until the kids. When do they graduate? And then is the reckoning.
No, in all sincerity, though, I mean. Not every hotel should be franchised. Not every hotel that has a flag should be franchised. We're seeing a lot of hotels opting out of franchises and opting out of carrying a flag. And I think for some hotels, that's appropriate. For some hotels, it's totally appropriate, right? I mean, you're going to be paying 15% or 18% or 20% to an Expedia or a Booking.com simultaneously, and you don't get all the other things that you get with being a franchise property, like volume purchasing, like access to financing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that some properties are going to need, right?
Right. Yeah.
At the same time, you can't sustain doubling your fees relative to the increase in revenue. I mean, that's not a sustainable model. And the franchisors either know that or they'll figure it out right quick. Right. I know enough people at enough of these companies. They're smart folks. They're not. They'll recognize whether or not that's sustainable in the near term. But it's really for each hotel you have to look at it.
But there's pressure from their shareholders, right? There's pressure from their shareholders on 2 points. One is grow your portfolio. Right, we need more hotels, and which has led to this proliferation of brands and things like that, some of which may not be quite as differentiated from others as they,
Wait, what?
They maybe could be. I'll put that gently. And the only other way that, they can either add properties or jack up the fees. I mean, because again, reducing costs, going, hey, we aren't going to offer this reservation. I mean, it's hard.
You left out a third one, by the way.
Okay.
You left out a third one, which to be fair is somewhat included in your first one, but acquisition. I mean,
exactly.
we're still going to see a lot more consolidation over the next handful of years.
Sure.
There's a bunch of chains out there and a bunch of brands out there that are ripe for acquisition. That I think that's just an inevitable consequence of this.
And your corporate, you keep the same corporate office. Maybe
that's right.
You acquire, instead of having 2, you can have 10% more, 15. I mean, I think some of these acquisitions are getting squeezed down, dramatically. Where basically it's brand management winds up being the accounting, finance, HR, things like that. Very, very small incremental growth. Yes, the brand management is there, and you go, yeah, this works, right? And let's just keep going and get the economies of scales and roll.
Right. I mean, there are going to end up, as there are in a lot of industries, 2 or 3 pretty big players and a handful of small folks who fill in the niches. But if you tell me that 3 years from now we are looking at, and I'll just name them, Marriott, Wyndham, IHG, Choice, Hilton, as 5 separate independent companies, I'll eat my hat. I don't want to eat my hat. I like my hat. I will bet anybody $50 that at least one of those 5 is absorbed into one of the other 5.
$50 and eat a rabbit liver. There you go.
But somewhere within the next, handful of years, I'll put 5 years on it, because I don't think it's next year probably, but it's probably not 10 years either. Realistically, I just don't see that as viable, right? Because especially when you're Marriott, especially when you're IHG, especially when you're Wyndham, you're big enough that organic growth isn't going to come easily. Right?
Yeah, it's not enough. It's not enough to satisfy your shareholders. Yeah.
Right. And if we hit a downturn, they're not going to be able to, continue to raise franchise fees and the like, because the franchisees won't be able to pay them.
Right.
To say nothing of other systemic threats that they face from properties being able
occupancy,
to go
occupancy drops, rates drop. All these are geared off a percentage of revenue, and all of a sudden that revenue stream drops. Yeah, you've got challenges. So,
and if any leg of the stool for any of those folks is wobbly, they're going to find their access to capital go away really quick, and they're not going to go out of business, but they're just going to hang out a white flag and say, "Hello, somebody come buy me." Right,
exactly. In a larger group who if they have deep pockets or investors,
or access to financing and things,
they will go and scoop that up, because that's the how do you increase market share? You do it during a downturn, not at a peak. And boy, I mean, you're going to have that, and you're going to have the OTAs well positioned to go. You're looking for incremental bookings from people who are brand agnostic and don't know you. We seem to know a few of those folks. How would you like?
We've only spent 20 years.
We would be happy to steer some of those your direction, and it's just all you got to do is this. It's simple. And when they go, I don't want to, they go, I'm sorry to offend you. We didn't want to do that, but I'm sorry. I've got to get the phone. There's somebody calling from next door to you who's looking for business.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So
exactly right. So I mean, that's to me, that's an inevitable consequence of this, right?
So, hey, can we take something we never talk about on here? Is food and beverage? Because I thought these 11 new restaurant concepts, CB Insights had a little article on F&B concepts hitting the kind of the casual, basically they're the hottest fast food and casual dining sort of things, which I don't see a lot of hotels going, down the full service, incredible over the top Michelin starred restaurant route. That's tough. But they have some interest, and I thought I'd just run through the 11. So the first one, vegan fast casual.
Which, by the way, as the real fast, I'm not going to comment on each of the 11 because we'll never get out of here. But as the father, as the parent of a vegan person, a vegan child, I can't tell you how overdue the marketplace is for that, especially once you get out of primary markets.
Right. Oh yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
You know, if you're not a primary market or a college town, finding vegan food is, to put it mildly, challenging.
Right. Good quality vegan food, fresh,
quality,
all that
fresh.
sort of.
Yep. Yep.
And that's it. And quality ingredients and the ability to customize it. I mean, what's interesting, I have a cousin who's allergic to garlic, which is a really bad thing to be allergic to because it's in everything.
Because it's in everything, yeah.
But let me tell you. Oh, go ahead.
All I was going to say was we were college shopping with my daughter a couple of years ago. And I know I've made this joke before, but we discovered that a lot of places, when they claim to be vegan friendly, what it means is that they won't mock you when you ask them for the vegan option, right? Like they're just polite to you about the fact that they don't have anything vegan. So yeah, that is a tough thing, and obviously a lot of folks are opting to not eat meat for all kinds of reasons, and so that's a great idea. I'm so in favor of this one.
Oh yeah. But what I was going to say with this guy who's allergic to garlic, the restaurants that we hit where they knew and the manager was there and they weren't just BSing, fixing it, being able to do it, that sort of thing, and that's really important with people with celiac disease or people who are just concerned about gluten who have absolutely no reason to be.
Well,
or I shouldn't say no reason to be. I mean, gluten is for you sort of thing, but they don't necessarily have celiac disease, but they're going they think they have to be completely gluten free.
Well, we also
those are issues.
Yeah. Well, you raised a great point a moment ago about does the staff even know? Right. Yeah. That was a big thing we ran into. Again, I'm focused on the vegan for personal reasons, but it's true for anybody else who deals with these other issues. We always talk about foods that are accidentally vegan. Right. So a thing that is accidentally vegan is dried pasta because it doesn't have an egg in it.
Right.
Whereas fresh pasta almost always has an egg in it. Yeah. And
that's a good point.
What was funny was when you'd ask a server, is the pasta fresh or is it, or is it
they
dried
want
pasta?
To say fresh.
And they want to say fresh. And it's like, no, we don't care. We actually prefer the dried pasta because it's accidentally vegan and it's something she can eat everywhere. Yeah. And literally the times when servers would know, was the pasta being made in the kitchen or did it come out of a box? Shockingly was amazingly high, where people were like, oh, I have no idea.
Right.
It's a good point.
And I think the implications for the hoteliers are, again, so many have gotten rid of food and beverage, that sort of thing. They've killed room service, but boy, people want to have breakfast. They would love to have it in a room. It's a great value add. It's huge, right? You can do great things, and these are the hottest things going on in food.
Robert,
so
you're a business traveler.
Think about it. Yeah,
you're a business traveler. How often do you show up at a hotel at 9:30 at night?
Oh yeah,
and you haven't eaten yet? And I don't. At this point, I'm not looking for a gourmet meal. I certainly don't want a big steak or a big, hamburger or something. I just want, a chicken Caesar salad. I just want something light so that I don't go to bed starving.
Not some of the junk in the Haagen-Dazs or whatever that's in the little freezer in their little thing next to the front desk. And you just go, oh my! It not only is it overpriced, it's a bunch of crap. And I don't want to eat that. I want some real food.
Right, a package of cookies and peanut butter crackers is hardly the dinner I was looking for.
Yeah, and a little cup of Haagen-Dazs for $9 or something. No.
So why don't you run through the rest of these? These are great.
Next Level Burger, which is, it's not organic, local, grass-fed. It's not meat. It's pea protein, yeast extract, coconut oil, and a little beet juice so it bleeds. But again, but I mean, these burgers, and if you click the link, it's a good-looking burger. It's just not meat, right? And that's going to be huge. North 3rd Street Market is more like a food court type thing, where it's, and you look at the Row Hotel in New York, has a great food court. They're independent, local.
I know it really well.
Guys,
Great place.
Fantastic. They're open late. They've got a great donut place in the morning. I mean, they've got it. I've got to see the future. For a hotel like that, that's a fantastic idea.
Yep.
The sushi kiosk, Misoko. People love sushi, and this is a very small square footage way to do it. I mean, hotelier.
I'm only laughing because I don't eat sushi if I'm more than 100 miles from the ocean.
Oh, well.
But sure.
We found a good place in Dallas, and we haven't died yet. So
fair. All right, or Dallas, or there's a handful of markets where that's not true. But
Automatic Food Cafe X, it's robotically produced. That's a little bit more,
feels too trendy for the sake of being trendy.
Yep, exactly. This is an interesting one. Rest Stop Upgrade, the Tesla Supercharger drive-in. So
that's clever.
Elon Musk, they're looking at, hey, what are you doing? You've got to charge your vehicle. You have time on your hands. What do? Musk's idea is to do a throwback restaurant, right? You do some sort of diner right there.
Well, what's smart about that is, if you think about it, that's the origins of a lot of fast food and a lot of motels.
Right, absolutely.
The original Marriott's, the original Days Inns, the
hot
original
shops, yeah.
Right, the original Super 8s, the original Howard Johnsons. Exactly. Was people have cars, wouldn't they like to stop and get a quick bite? That's really smart.
Yep. And then again, for a hotel, you go, hey, great. You've driven your car, your whatever, 200, 300, 500 miles, depending on the size of your battery. Stay overnight if you're doing this stuff. This is great. Get something to eat. Kombucha tap rooms.
Sure.
That's growing. Holistic fast casual Mendocino Farms is, again, great looking food, looks great. Here's one, Pets Allowed, the Lazy Dog Cafe, restaurant and bar where there's people food and dog food, right? Good dog food, really, really interesting. Yeah.
So this is a really smart one. The others are very smart as well. This is a very smart one. As people are getting married later and holding off having kids until later, the growth of pet parents as a market is huge.
My daughter and her husband are big pet parents, and they live in Austin, a very pet friendly town.
Absolutely.
These are things that are like hotel industry. You have to be on this. And again, I mentioned on the last show the Westin. I had huge problems with the Westin in Austin, the Westin downtown. But a really smart thing they did is they had the names of the dogs who were checking in that day on a chalkboard. You go, yes, tell them the hotel loves dogs as much as you do.
Well, and it's funny. I work with a client who we don't emphasize the fact that they're pet friendly. So this is just a perfect example of you can do this in more subtle ways. They don't emphasize the fact that they're pet friendly because they only have a small number of rooms that they can accommodate, but they also make sure that they promote it to a degree. And this is always a balancing act of how much do we promote versus how much do we just make it apparent when necessary, so that folks who are active pet parents and the like can choose them and see that they're in play, right?
Right.
And so you can find that balance based on what your reality is for your property.
Yeah. Here's one which is very cool. It's called Loom, and it's basically they're an investment group too. I believe that they're redoing older buildings. They'll take over an old Federal Reserve Bank building or something like that. But it's a community focused one, right? And they've got like a James Beard award-winning chef who's heading this, but it's local ingredients, it's locally sourced, it's historical recipes, and all the local arts community and all of this stuff coming together where they can do kind of this historic, not just retro 50 trendy thing, but really, hey, this is an authentic local sort of thing that is supporting the local community, right? That's really doing something there, which is great. And this one I thought was genius. The 11th one, it's called the Weeknight Bar. It's called School Night, right?
Yeah,
so they have this place where it's it's an event space. They're busy on weekends, and what do? They open a bar during the week, right? And
again, great idea for a business hotel, for a city center hotel.
Yep, absolutely
fantastic.
And again, it's hoteliers. You've got to be looking at these sorts of things for what are you doing to really attract. And they said purchasing power is shifted to diners ages 22 to 36. Right.
Which, by the way, we no longer say millennials around here. This is my new quote. We simply talk about adults under 40.
Ah, there you go.
Because realistically.
Teens 14 to 40.
Well, no, I mean realistic. Millennials, the oldest millennials are their mid to late 30s now.
Right.
Depending on whose numbers you go by, but they're at least in their 35 as the oldest.
Oh yeah.
So we're not talking about kids. We're not talking about young people. We're talking about adults, right? They just happen to be adults under 40.
Yeah, well, and they had the strategies for staying inspired and remaining relevant. And they're like 5. Purchasing power shift. Age bracket wants meals that are healthful, gentler on the environment, and aesthetically pleasing. Right?
That's great.
Dining out is less of a luxury, more of a means of socializing and connecting with like-minded peers. Demand for inventive, exciting meals becoming more geographically dispersed, moving beyond New York and LA. And the technology can assist the restaurant operations when it's deliberately incorporated to complement the work of humans, right? You can be more technologically strong, so you can provide these great things. So
great roundup, great recap. Definitely something people should check out.
And so, no, you have to go. What was the rut row of this week? Was U.S. tourism now in Chinese crosshairs in trade war. We don't want this to happen.
Yeah, I'm going to give my last word, and then I got to go. But we know that something's going to come and make the economy start to falter. I don't know why we're choosing to do it to ourselves. This is such a bad idea, and is possibly the thing that's going to tip us into recession, right? I mean, yeah, it's just such a silly thing.
I've maintained for years that is the easiest way.
That's right.
Opening up, let's have more tourists come in is a great way to get all sorts of growth, employ people. It's fantastic, and it's tough. We're doing some of the wrong things to make people not want to come here, and boy, with China with that number of tourists, the rest of the world, if you're outside of the U.S., ramp up because you have a huge opportunity. Yeah, exactly. So that's it for the show. And Tim, I really think maybe we should just, it was so good without the others, don't you think?
Robert, it is a delight to get to talk to you one-on-one for a change, but obviously we miss our compatriots and hope that they are back next week.
Of course.
Where should people look to find you, Robert?
You can always find me rockcheetah.com or at Robert K. Cole on all forms of social media.
Fantastic. And of course, you can find me at timpeter.com and TC Peter on Twitter, Tim Peter on most other social channels. So.
And the one thing I really think we should do is we should just hit the road and do a thing where you have topics and we draw, and it's a point counterpoint. Maybe we could we shouldn't even know the topics before, but someone has to go pro, someone has to go con, and we draw it out of a hat and go.
Well, I think I'm going to see you at the Hotel Data Conference in a couple of weeks.
That's right.
So,
and I feel very badly about that because you asked me about it, and I said,
no, it's all good. It's all good.
No. A quick, fast story. Tim calls me and is asking about the Hotel Data Conference, and I go, and I'll call out STR. Pretty heavy pay-to-play environment in terms of getting on the things, and I haven't talked about three years. So I got interviewed by somebody about just an article type thing, which happens from time to time, and he goes, wow, would you like to talk at the conference? And I'm like, oh, and this is like the week after. I said, I don't know, it's a pretty heavy pay to play.
Sure.
That. So yeah, I'm actually speaking. I didn't do that to take you to not compete for, allow you to compete for a spot. So
not a problem. Well, full disclosure, there's going to be a little bleisure trip wrapped around that. I have never been to Nashville.
Oh my goodness!
And as the music fan that I am, that has been on the list for a long time.
Nashville has music, really?
A little bit, yeah.
Really?
I hear tell.
When you get off your as long as you don't have like a 7 a.m., if you aren't coming in at 7 or 8 a.m., but you come into the airport and there's live music in the airport, which is awesome. Great. Yeah,
that's awesome. I'm looking forward. So nonetheless, I will be at the conference, but I am looking forward to being around Nashville a bit. So that should be a lot of fun.
Yes, it's a great spot. So.
With that, Robert, great seeing you. Happy Friday, and see you next week here on This Week in Hospitality Digital Marketing.
Very good.
Cheers, everybody.
Bye-bye.